The November Board of Education meeting to order at 7:04. Tonight we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Will be the 2017 Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents Student Award Recognition Program recipients. The program provides superintendents with a means of aligning themselves with students in their local communities. The award program is designed to allow superintendents to move beyond the academic achiever who routinely receives recognition and to use their discretion and understanding of the students to reach a wider spectrum, not often or perhaps never considered as stars. Awards are based on community service and service to others, academic proudness, and leadership service to the school and community. This year's recipients are from Turtelot Memorial High School, Joseph, and forgive me, Joseph Boguslavsky,
perfect,
and Michaela Godzik. Middle School, Brianna Martin and Catherine Poirier. Mary R. Fisher Elementary School. Oh, look at her with a pretty little face. Dylan, oh boy, Donarski and Lily Peckham. And the awards ceremony is being held on Tuesday, December 5th at the Killingly High School. So I think we all should attend that. And now, if you will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, congratulations to all of you.
And I'm just going to add thank you to Mrs. Smith, because if she didn't extend this invitation, we would not be here, and it's a wonderful ceremony, so I'm glad you've kept that piece for our students. And I want to thank all the parents that are out there representing these fine students, because without you, we certainly wouldn't have these wonderful leaders in our school. So it's a tribute to yourselves, your families, and to our students. So thank you. Thank you all.
I'll see you at the award ceremony. I'll see you at the award ceremony.
Can we get a picture with the administrators and Melinda, please?
Oh, that would be great.
With the students. Where are you going?
There we go. Here we go.
1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you.
Very good. And they
Mark's right up.
Okay, I'll now open the floor for citizens' comments. Please state your name for Danielle. Any citizens' comments tonight? Okay, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike, let everybody clear out so we can we'll be able to hear you.
My name is Mike Kogel, 18 Walker Drive. I am here to request that the Board of Ed have the opening of the RFP privatization bids opened in front of a bus privatization recording posted on the Board of Ed website and recorded during the opening. I would also like to suggest to the Board of Ed members to let me start over. I lost my spot. I'm asking the Board of Ed to have the opening of the RFP bids for bus privatization recorded and posted onto the Board of Ed website. I would also like to suggest to the Board of Ed members to post the operating costs for the current bus transportation. After a year's time, I'm sure that we would know what the operating costs are to run our buses at this point. As I have stated previously, I believe there is a lack of transparency by the Board of Ed and their budget numbers. I believe if the Board of Ed were to post these bids on the privatization, it would go a long way in showing the town that there is transparency. Thank you very much. I'd like to submit this for the record.
Any other citizens' comments tonight?
With there being none, the high school would like to celebrate our Student Spotlight of the Month, ladies. This is a student-nominated award, so I'm going to let them orchestrate it.
Alright, so each month, Turtle Lot Memorial High School Student Spotlight Program recognizes a student who has demonstrated outstanding achievement, character, leadership, attitude, and/or contributions to the school and community. October's Student Spotlight honoree is junior Eric Parafenowitz. Eric was nominated for the Student Spotlight recognition by sophomore Jordan Bergeron. In nominating Eric, Jordan says, "Eric is always positive. He says hi to everyone in the hallway and is always smiling. He makes sure everyone is in a great mood and is never down on themselves. He has a way to brighten a room with his positive attitude. Eric says, my parents and friends motivate me to try my best to be a better person." Eric is an active part of his school community. He particularly likes to run, especially long-distance running. He is a member of TMHS's cross-country, indoor track, and outdoor track teams. Eric has lettered in both indoor and outdoor track, and he earned his cross-country coach's award. Eric says of his love for running, "Every time I try hard to improve my records. My coaches, Mrs. Tenek and Mr. Shelton, helped me to be a good runner." Eric is also on the robotics team and is an active member of all of his classes. His art teacher, Mrs. Pocosi, says, "Eric never quits. He has a great attitude and is a role model for other students." Of his plans for the future, Eric says, "I would like to be a scientist or work in a lab. I love experiments." Undoubtedly, Eric's personal message to his school community reflects his positive attitude. Eric says, "Try to do your best every day with a smile. Respect everyone."
So Eric, if you want to be a scientist, I think those two gentlemen right there might be able to help you.
There you go.
Thank you
very much. Thanks.
I would like to make a recommendation that the student spotlight become a permanent item in the agenda, possibly under item 5, like C. That way we don't do it under citizens' comments anymore.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Or it can become B or C, whatever, wherever we see fit. It should be its own line item in the agenda. Okay. Any committee updates? I know we didn't have any, but do you want to report on what's going on with
The windows are almost there. We have one. We keep having. We want to make sure it's done right, so we keep having one more issue. But I think we're pretty close. Bill's going to call tomorrow, and we're trying to get the purchase out of place as quickly as possible so we can get that going. And that's for the Board of Trustees. Everything else, nothing's changed since last month.
And the Alumni Association?
Yeah, we came off of a very busy alumni weekend, which was well attended, and I have to tell you, just the community involvement, the alumni involvement, the administration, faculty, it was well-oiled machine, and I know there was a lot of unsung heroes, but I think it went off very well. We have an alumni meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock right here. and we're gonna be talking about ways that we can try to make it even better, and a better experience for all, whether you're attending or just want to see what's going on up here at the school. But well done to everybody, so thank you.
And to piggyback on that, we're having our wrap-up meeting on Wednesday with our internal, as well as Rachel coming to visit with us. So I'm sure she'll bring with her the information that you share at your meeting. So again, we can continue to expand and celebrate.
Just one other thing, I had the privilege of interviewing our board liaison, Jordan. And I have to tell you, I got choked up in my meeting with her. And we have a very good group of students in this entire school district. But Jordan, I'm telling you, she is gonna be a person to watch in the future. The way that she conducted herself in the interview, I think she was interviewing me. And hopefully she'll hire me someday, so.
Thank you.
Jordan, well done.
Thank you.
I heard that other young lady's not so bad either.
Oh, thank God she takes after her mother.
Any other committees that want to report in? Policy committees, movement?
No, we have to keep moving forward on the update, but with the executive session today, we're kind of put it back,
Okay.
so.
Okay, and I'll turn the meeting back over.
No, we're not. Thank you.
We're done.
You done?
Jordan didn't even start talking yet.
It's not her turn.
Be careful, might not stop and
Well,
to start.
we told him since they don't want to pass.
Yeah.
Well, they wanna leave? Oh. All right. Well, we'll go in order.
Okay. Yeah, we're at the,
We'll start with
So
education.
superintendent.
we're on number 5.
Yep.
Just that 5.
Just started.
Superintendent report?
Okay. If you look at our enrollment numbers, you can see that we're up 1 student this month. There's been a lot of activity in and out. If you can look at, we've added a couple of pre-K students, then we lost a first grader, and then, we added a second grader, but we lost a third and fourth grader. So there's been there's been some movement back and forth. We did have a student return from Ellis in grade 10, so that's the reason the number went up from 53 to 54. So we end this month as 1,013 students. In relation to my enrollment report, I wanted to talk a little bit about the residency checks that we've been doing in the town. And one of the things that I want to talk about is when a student enrolls here in Thompson, every student, whether or not they have siblings in the system or not, need to present a mortgage or a lease statement, a utility bill, a birth certificate, immunization records, and that's regardless if there are other siblings in the district or not. That is the requirement to enroll your student, your child. And those are the same requirements that we're asking to verify residency, either a mortgage or a lease or a utility bill. So as you recall, we had some students that we wanted to make sure were residents of the town of Thompson. And so we went through a process this summer. First, we looked at all of the students that we made tuition payments out for, and we took that group of students and we sent out letters in early July, July 24th to be exact, asking parents to at least give us either a copy of their mortgage or lease agreement and a utility bill, just to verify that they're living in town and we can go ahead and pay that out of district tuition. And so we got many parents who complied with that without a problem. But then we needed to send a follow-up letter because we had about 26 families who had not supplied us with that information. So on August 29th, we sent out a second letter reminding parents to give us that information. And from that, we received more documentation and that number started to go down. In October, I came before the board and I asked to contract with EastCon so that we could hire a residency and truant officer to help us now after 2 letters. What do we do now? And so we needed someone to visit those sites and see if those folks really did live in town. And so we did have that truant officer go out, the residency officer go out. At that time, we had 15 students that we didn't have residency information We sent out a third letter because we wanted to give folks a chance before someone went to visit their home that, you know, just a reminder, this is your third letter, third notification, please bring in your residency documentation. And we got a few more of those after that, but we were left with 15. What happened was when we entered the system on an online database, parents had brought in some of the documentation. And although Danielle did update that database, when the truant officer went out, or the residency officer went out, he took that original list and didn't communicate with Danielle. And this is our first go around with this gentleman. So we've cleaned up that process. He's going to contact Danielle the night before he's going out and make sure that the list that he has is accurate so that we don't bother people who have already done the right thing and handed in their documentation. Out of the 15, there are still people, eight families that have not provided us with the documentation even after his visit, but I do believe he gave them a couple of week window to get us that information. One of the families that he went to was a vacant resident. The house was empty, but he did track down the student, and the student is living with his grandparents in town, so we knew that one of those was okay. One of them, though, the student was out of district. They don't live here in Thompson. So we know that when that tuition bill comes in from that out of district placement, even though it wasn't a high ticket special ed tuition, we know that we're not paying that tuition. So that one student, and he still has 7 others to look at, but that one student more than pays for him. Which is what we wanted to do. Some of the concerns of folks in town have been, well, wait a minute, why are you only targeting those that you're paying tuition for? Well, we went with that group first. The second round that we're going to place is, we do have some referrals from our principals and from schools, and teachers know that some of these students don't live here, and we need to double check those. We've also done some mailings, and we've gotten mail returned that they don't live there. So that's another red flag for us. So that's the next group of folks that we'll take a look at. And then after that, we'll put a system in place so that we make sure that we're, you know, monitoring the residency. I don't think the board wants to have all 1,013 students submit residency documentation all the time, every year, but we certainly want to make sure that we're on top of those that we have a question about. And so it's going to kind of cycle in these phases, those that we pay tuition, those that we have a good suspicion about, and then keep monitoring that. And bus drivers are always good to tell us, you know, a parent with out of state plates dropping off at a bus stop. Like, you get that information. So that's the process that's been in place, and I just want to say that I know there's been a lot of chatter on social media, but really, we're still waiting for people to give us that documentation, and so we really need to make sure that we receive that.
Something else too, when you meet with Ken, this came up in a conversation with a parent about out-of-state plates. This is something that we might be able to work together with the town on, because ultimately we're also responsible to the town. You know, we talk about all the time, anything we can, you know, work with the town to help save the taxpayer money, we do it. Well, we may find out that somebody lives in town, but they've got 4 vehicles registered out of state. We'll pass that along to Ken, because now it's the first selectman's job to make sure that they're not paying taxes on those cars. So any information that we gather, and vice versa, if they're seeing, kids drive in, but I see a lot of mass plates all the time, pickup, parent pickup, parent drop off. Look, there's legitimate reasons. I had for years, I had a Massachusetts company vehicle, okay, which is, perfectly legal. But there's a lot of people I know that aren't registering in state, and from the town side, they should want to pick that up and go with it. So just saying.
Something to talk to.
People always want us to be fiscally responsible until it affects them. Well,
I just wanted to be clear on the process that we've been going through.
Yep.
It's been very well documented. We gave families 3 different opportunities to provide us with the information, and then we sent out somebody knocking on their door. It's not like we sent someone out willy-willy. We were careful about that. And Danielle's working very closely. His name is Don. She's working very closely with him. And I honestly believe he's very respectful when he goes out to the home. So he's a nice man, and but he needs to get the job done. And so that's what we're paying him to do.
And most importantly, we're not paying them.
Right.
Because we found somebody, and this is, you know, when I read, where are they finding all this money to well, guess what, that's where we found it. You know, we just made a profit, because we know what he's costing us, so.
Yes.
Melinda, for those that are now on their 4th round, what's the next step for people we're paying tuition for out of town if they don't comply?
Well, that's the next question to ask him, you know, where do we go next with that? I can tell you what I did in my former district, and it's not popular. We took the per diem rate of educating a child and sent them a tuition bill, literally, because we knew that they didn't live there. But I'd wanna make sure that that was the absolute case before we went down that road. So I would say at this point, we work with Don to have him go back out again, and, you know, I'm sure he gave parents at least a 2-week window to get back to Danielle. So, out of those 7 now that are pending, we'll have him go out one more time, and then I'll find out what the next steps are from his perspective.
Are we paying those tuition bills now, or
No, we haven't paid any.
All right, so the school that's teaching these students are gonna wanna get anxious, and maybe they could
That's
help
what we're
with some
hoping.
of that
That's what we're
collection part.
I think it
Actually,
might,
it worked in the, we did have a student that didn't give us documentation for special education, and Mr. Sugarman explained, well, we're holding tuition because we don't have residency, and that out-of-district placement contacted the family, and we did get the residency information. So it does work that way, so it might be helpful that we haven't gotten a tuition bill in yet, so we haven't denied tuition to anyone yet, but they're coming, they're due, so.
there may be an education opportunity here where I think there's a misconception out there that people feel we have open enrollment to whatever school you want to go to, without the acceptance process. You know, that if you can't just go to Woodstock Academy or Killingley High School. If you choose to go to the BOAG, then you have to apply and be accepted. You just don't get to go to a school that you want to go to. And I think there might be a misconception about that out there, that those that go to Killingley because, or Jewett or Griswold because they want to play basketball don't get, I mean, they can certainly do that, but there's a tuition they gotta pay.
Do a better job with that.
You know, Joe, to your point, I mean, there is a lot of naysayers out there about this whole thing that we're doing. And, you know, we publicly invited them to come, and not one is here tonight, so.
Well, and this isn't, what we're doing isn't new.
This isn't new.
We
You're
used to
absolutely
do
right.
this all the time, and we just haven't done it in a while, that's all,
Right.
because we didn't feel the need. Now we have the
Right.
need.
It's commonplace in the surrounding
Yeah.
districts.
And
It
it's,
is.
and it's perfectly in the up and legal,
Yeah.
there's nothing, we're not doing anything underhanded.
No,
So,
you're questioned if you do it, and you're questioned if you don't, so.
That's why I said,
You know,
everybody
it's-
wants us to be fiscally responsible.
Right.
Until it affects them. And then it's,
Exactly
wait a
right.
minute, that's not what I meant.
Okay, so what's up next?
So what's up next is we have 2 representatives from East Bay Educational Collaborative, Ronald Kahn and Ron DeFranzo. Many people might know Ron DeFranzo because he's been here doing the squid dissection with our students and their families, which were very well attended at both Mary Fisher and, of course, our middle school. They're here to talk to us tonight about the importance of inquiry-based science instruction. Right now, we need to revise our current curriculum and align it to the next generation science standards. We're hoping to work with East Bay Collaborative on that professional development with our teachers. We had a group of teachers go out to East Bay Collaborative to take a look at the program there because we wanted teachers to make a decision around, is this the way we should go around science instruction, developing our curriculum, and then thinking about our resources. So the team went out with Ian, myself, Noveline was there, and a group of teachers from the elementary and the middle school, because right now we're targeting K-8. And they took a look at their program, and then the feedback that I got back is we very much like to use these resources and develop curriculum and work on the professional development with East Bay Collaborative. And we actually have our 4th grade team of teachers who have agreed this spring to pilot some of the materials and also a 7th and an 8th grade middle school science teacher who are going to pilot some of their materials. So Ron and Ron are here tonight to talk about inquiry-based science and why it's important, and it ties directly into the student-centered learning focus that we have. So I'm going to turn it over to them, but you may want to move so you can see the screen.
So which Ron was the smelly Ron?
I heard all about the squid in the kitchen.
Yeah, I got in a little bit of trouble.
We heard a lot of good things about it, Phil.
Well, I've been doing it for about 20 years.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It's just one of my favorite activities. Danielle, do we have a clicker?
Yes, that is
You're gonna be the clicker? So let me begin. Danielle's gonna pull up a PowerPoint, but thanks for giving us some of your time tonight. We're here to talk to you about a new science program that we think is the right thing for you guys to be thinking about. And now is the perfect time, now is the essential time for you to be trying to make these decisions. 3 years ago, the state of Connecticut adopted the latest set of standards, national standards. They're called the Next Generation Science Standards. And they require that your kids and all other kids in the country to do science differently than you and I did when we were in school. My science background was that you learn science by reading it out of a book. That's how you got your science. That's not good enough anymore. Kids need to be able to actively involved in the acquisition of data, the testing of it, the analysis of it, and making judgments about data, because your kids these days walk around with cell phones in their pockets. They have instant access to all the data in the world that you could possibly want. It's not so necessary anymore for this thing need to be turned on, Daniel?
The projector, I'm just seeing Jordan can help me. I'll put the projector on. Somebody tall, just push that button.
I don't know which button it is.
I think it's on.
Anyway, I can do the PowerPoint without the slides. It's so important that you folks think about upgrading your science, because access to information isn't the problem anymore. That's how we got our science. We're doing by reading about it in books or watching news programs. But nowadays, kids have phones. They can access all kinds of information on their cell phones, way more than you can possibly digest. And you need to be able to make good judgments about what information you're getting. So the science program that we're talking about, and Melinda talked about, is what's called an inquiry-based science program, although that term is kind of been taken over by what they call the scientific practices, which means that kids should be learning science the way scientists learn science, by doing experiments. They actually get involved in the manipulation of materials, collect data, try to make some sense out of it, looking for patterns by maybe making a graph, and then making some judgments about the data, and then sharing that data with other people. And some of that data might be criticized by other people. Not everybody's going to agree with your data, but data is data, and we all should be able to look at the data and make our own judgments about it. Never before in the history of this country has it been so important to be able to do that. About 3 weeks ago in Rhode Island, a group of scientists were scheduled to make a presentation to what they call the Save the Bay organization, which oversees the care of the Narragansett Bay. 3 of those scientists were EPA scientists, and they had been working in Rhode Island for 5 years. I'm going to just jump way ahead on this stuff. They've been working in Rhode Island for over 5 years. Okay, I'm just going to go through my... Daniel, maybe you could get this to work.
You have to kind of aim it towards that computer. It's not the best signal. I can click over it.
Maybe you could click for me over that. These EPA scientists were scheduled to appear in a statewide meeting revealing the results of their research on the Narragansett Bay. They happened to be EPA scientists. The night before that presentation was scheduled to take place, the head of the EPA in Washington told those scientists they could not share their results, because there was some notation in there about they were going to be talking about global climate change, which, as you know from the politics of our president, and I don't want to get into politics, but can you go to the next one, Daniel? Just keep going. This is the one. The head of the EPA, Scott Pruitt, has made a statement that climate change denial is mission essential, mission critical. People should not be turning their backs on the data. It should be a free and open society. We should all be able to look at the data that these scientists have and make our own judgments about what's happening, whether it's climate change or not. It's not something that we can stand by passively and just have someone take this opportunity for us to learn about this science. Your kids are going to have to be able to do that. You go to the next slide, Danielle. We talk about ocean levels rising. It's already happening. There's places called Kiribati where people who lived in these houses used to be over dry land, and now it's over water because the tide's coming in. Global ocean levels are rising. There's no question about it. The data is clear. NASA scientists have talked about this stuff. The ocean levels have risen over the last century 4 to 8 inches, but in the past 20 years, that rate is twice as much as it was in the previous 80 years. So there's something happening here. We should all know about this. We should all be able to make decisions about it. Your kids are going to have to make these choices when they get to be voting age. And my last slide, Danielle. By the year 2100, global ocean levels are projected to rise as much as 31 inches. That's 38 inches. By the year 2100, 38 inches, that's enough to wipe out Miami and all the coastal regions in Florida. If that's happening, this is not going to affect you and me. We won't be around for that, but your grandchildren will be. And the kids in our schools nowadays, they need to know how to look at data and be able to make their own judgments about it, whether it's global warming or not, whether it's not that topic, but they need to be able to look at that. That's the kind of science program that we're promoting and hoping and encouraging you to take advantage of. I've worked with Melinda for the last 5 years back in Rhode Island. We did this program in the rural district and with great success. I'm still working there, still got some more sort of cleaning up to do that. But it's a great program. I encourage you all to consider it very carefully. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ron Kahn.
Well, thank you all for inviting us. This is the East Bay Educational Collaborative. It's been in science education for 25 years now. We're serving 4 states, Rhode Island, predominantly mostly in Rhode Island. We serve Mass, we have Connecticut, and we actually are up in New Hampshire as well. The FOSS Science Kit program, the Science Kit programs that we're talking about, everyone wants their kids to have STEM opportunities. Everyone wants their kids to at least have the option to get excited about science, to get enthused about science, and to get kids so that they'll have the ability, if they want, to pursue STEM careers. That's everybody hears STEM, STEM, STEM. In 2015, the state of Connecticut adopted the Next Generation Science Standards, as you all probably know. It's not a question of when, the question is it's got to be done now. And this particular program that we advocate, we strongly advocate, the Next Generation Science Standards are all built on learning progressions. Kids learn a certain amount of science in certain areas in kindergarten all the way up to the 12th grade. And this particular program, it's used nationally. It was developed at the Lawrence Hall of Science out in University of California. It's been used, the program itself has been around for almost 25 years now, but it's evolved over time. This is the latest Next Generation Science Standards version. It's all been set up for that. It engages all kids actively with inquiry science. It makes particular connections with literacy, science literacy. How do kids read these kinds of science articles like Ron referred to and go into it with a critical mind so they can make the decisions for themselves and be, if nothing else, educated when they go to the voting booth? So we want kids to do that. And it's very robust. The whole program is very robust. And it also has a heavy use of technology. And that technology actually goes to the home too as well. So that when students, teachers, or kids are reading about science, which is part of this program as well, they will be able to access it at home at night, online or whatever, or the teacher can download it or they can print it out or whatever, and we have books that will go with it as well, hard copies of everything. And teachers, and actually parents, the community can follow along what the kids are doing. So they'll see how it's all laid out, it's all highly visible and very transparent, the whole program. There are engineering and outdoor connections in the science program that come with these kits. Now, if you have a picture of a kit as being, kind of like, in my day, when kids were building model cars out of kits, or kit-based, making a hot rod kit-based, it's not that, okay? These kits, if you go to this slide, the kits come with everything a teacher needs, everything. As a matter of fact, what we do at the East Bay Collaborative, we add to the kit, because every kit from the publisher comes with a long laundry list. Teachers got to supply this, that, and that. Everything goes in. They have actually coupons for their live specimens. They want their live specimens, they pull a coupon off, they send it in, and they get what they need. Crayfish, whatever it is, okay? And The teacher resources, it has, first of all, it has an investigations guide that the teachers will be able to use and follow through on the instruction, and it suggests ways that they can modify the lessons as well, so that the teacher is not out of the equation in using these things. All the equipment, all your lab equipment, everything, all OSHA safe, everything is right there, and it's in there. And what we do with the collaborative, because we're serving over 100,000 students now, we have an economy of scale on all these consumables. So elementary teachers particularly don't have the time to sit around and pre-measure sand or to mix up a particular chemical or whatever. It's all done for them. Everything is explicitly aligned to NGSS. It shows at any given time what standard you're working on. And it's all instructionally ready. All the consumables, everything's pre-measured, and it's ready to go. You know the next slide? Is that it? Okay. We have a Science Materials Resource Center at the Collaborative. When the kits are done with after reuse, they come back to us and we completely refurbish them. So they go back to the classroom just like brand new every time. They're all in durable storage containers. Everything is taken care of. We're not a company. We're a nonprofit educational organization, but this has been an integral part of our services, the Science Materials Resource Center. And what's important is that the teachers are getting everything that they want and they're getting it every year. And it's all tied in with professional development and the kinds of support that we do. And the technology, I mentioned that it's online. There's an investigations guide that the teacher can access 24/7 all year round on the beach if they want, or on a picnic, or at a little party at home. But all of that is there. There's teacher preparation videos that are all online for them, so that after they've had the training, if they want to refresh themselves, how do I do this or how do I do that, they can see that. There's also an online assessment system that they can use, especially for formative assessment, so that at the end of the day, after they taught something and they start looking through kids' notebooks, which are an integral part of all of this, but it tells them how did the students do on certain questions, so that they know if they've got to reteach it, go back, teach it a little differently, and there's always those suggestions too, how they can modify instruction. There's interactive whiteboard activities. We have the kids and online activities, and I think that's pretty much it. But it's, you know, it's really an effective program. It's a way of getting NGSS implemented.
And I think that the key to the whole program is the on-site professional development. When we have someone like Rhonda Franzo come out and work with the teacher in the classroom and co-teach a lesson, help the teacher understand if they don't know or have a misconception about a particular science concept, to work with the teacher through that. And I think that is the basic component, and I think that is the key. We can all have these resources and materials and a set of standards, but the implementation and the instructional practices associated with that is where we're going to get that student-centered approach. And it's nice that we can tap into having Ron come out and work with our teachers. So he's going to start that already this year. We had some professional development money in a federal grant, and he's going to start working with those pilot teachers and starting to work with the teachers overall to revise the curricula. And then we're hoping through the budget process we're able to afford the science kits that are associated with the PD. But we are going to start the professional development this year because we had some federal grant money we could tap into. But I wanted you to know what we were doing, and I wanted you to meet these two gentlemen.
And my distinguished colleague is a presidential awardee for the state of Massachusetts in science.
He is too.
Rhode Island.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for our guests? Jody?
Can you give me a couple examples of the types of kits? I mean, what are the topics of these kits?
Well, the national standards want kids to have a life, earth, and physical science experience at every grade level. It begins in kindergarten. I don't know if we're talking kindergarten here or not, but
yes, we did.
Three kits per year, life, earth, and physical. And there's what they call a learning progression that starts at kindergarten and it takes them all the way through high school about how the topics and the major ideas of science get developed at the different grades. It kind of spirals up in a learning progression. But the kids will do electric circuits. They'll look at crayfish. They'll do stream tables with floods and
magnetism.
All kinds of materials. What Melinda said about the the materials. This kind of a program, stuff gets used up, stuff breaks. We know that that's normal wear and tear. But as part of the program, your kids come back to us, we put the stuff back in them 100%. So you get the kids back every time 100%. In the past, when people tried to use kit-based programs and stuff got used up, there was no replenishment system in place. That's doomed to failure. So we have a program where once, 3 times a year, a driver will come to our facility in Warren, Rhode Island, pick up the materials and bring them back to the schools. And the professional development that Linda talked about, it's, it'll be on site. I mean, we're not gonna ask your teacher to drive an hour to get to our place. We're gonna come here to do it.
So I see too, the PD, very
Yeah.
important,
Right.
but the kits, my mom's a 35-year teacher,
Mhm.
and that was her biggest complaint. You go and you learn these great tools, but it was never replenished after.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why some of those programs failed in the past. We don't wanna see that happen. We've got a plan in place for that.
But it's right down to Q-tips and small things that you and I wouldn't think about that are essential to some type of an experiment that are in the kit, so the teacher doesn't have to go crazy looking for it. And actually, our relationship's over 20 years, Ron. In 3 different districts, and I will be honest with you, that was the one thing. The teachers could take a deep breath and know that the stuff is there for them. Really, it's the professional development, and the other piece of it that we didn't talk a lot about was the scientific writing, and that scientific notebook, which is actually is what makes our science scores improve on standardized testing. That science notebook is amazing how students can write down their thoughts around science experiments. So, and it's a process, and the teachers have to learn that, and then they have to teach it to their children. And Noveline's back there.
I'm just gonna add, from going to the field trip, I'm thinking, now the school doesn't have to buy the books. The books are part of the kit. So instead of seeing what, we've seen with turnover of books and things that go obsolete, that's just part of the kit. So you're not going to have that whole piece for an entire district on science books. They're always going to be up to date. The second part is everybody's got equity. Doesn't matter if you're coming from teacher A, B, C, and D, and wherever, you're all going to get the kit and to see the assembly line at the place, and they've got people that are there just going through and being meticulous about restocking the kit. I was impressed with the whole process. It's not a little fly-by-night kind of place. It's a really intense inventory system. They know what schools, they have somebody in charge, they have all different levels of their structure that's been, as you can see, well in place for many, many years. And that to me, from a management type of background and business background, their business model just themselves of how to do that whole plant is incredible. So it's a good product. It's you could see the thought, the list is there. They're meticulous. They stand behind it. Anything you need, they're there. Professional development is there. I couldn't come away with anything that said, it is a price. Is the price worth it? I'm going to say, from my point, it is.
Well, you can get a job selling for these guys after you're
Yeah,
retired.
I think so. All right.
You're doing a good job.
Well, my concern is this year we have, for the professional development, we have the federal grant. But as we turn teachers over, we'll continue to need professional development. We will continue to need to buy these kits and put them into the budget, which will increase our supply cost or wherever we're going to budget for these. I'm not denying it. It sounds wonderful. It sounds like a terrific program, and I would love to say it, but there's going to be a legacy cost as we go.
Of course
forward.
there is.
Yes.
The initial outlay of outfitting and formatting the kits in years 1 and 2 is where the big cost is, and then moving forward after that, it's just refurb, and the price drastically drops.
Okay.
I think what you buy up front, and we're trying to figure out our federal grant money that we had in the bank, kind of left over. We're trying to figure out how to use that so that we can stretch it over the rest of this year and into next.
Right.
really it'll be the cost associated with the materials, and if we can look at science text versus line versus, you know, the actual inquiry-based materials, it just might be a balance and a wash. We just haven't figured that part out. I just wanted you to be aware of the road we're going down, so that when you see it in budget, you have some basis for
Okay.
what that number looks
I
like.
appreciate that, but I do need to get my mind wrapped around some costs.
Oh, I know. I know.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Thank you, gentlemen.
So it's a strategic.
When I was in high school, we had to, in biology, we had to go catch our own frogs.
Just gonna say,
Oh.
catch your own frog and bring your own lure, too.
Yeah, we had to catch our own frogs.
So those days are gone, I don't know.
Right at the pond.
Yeah, as I say, we'd go to the Vernio Pond out there.
Right behind what was the youth service center.
I think it should go up there.
You wanna put it up?
Did you want
But it was, then it became the youth service.
Well, if it's not gonna show.
No, it's already been done.
Oh, I think I have. We're gonna put the strategic plan up there if you guys
Yep,
wanna.
here we go, move again.
I wanna make it.
move.
I didn't realize this is a Pilates class.
You need the exercise,
I know.
Angelo.
Welcome to the Board of Ed spin class.
10 years of recruiting.
Okay. Oops. Here we go, here's our vision. My vision's 2020.
Hey, can we pick new seats when the new board starts?
Guest appearance. Oh, I'm sorry, Fran.
I'm clever that way, Joe.
Prior to my arrival, the members of the Board of Education set a vision for Thompson Public Schools. And they basically revolved around 4 main goals. And so based on those 4 main goals, the district developed a plan to address the goals that they had identified. And we had a planning team meet on a couple of Saturdays to brainstorm some ideas around how do we take the board's goals and then put them into a plan that we can implement. So about 49 teachers, Board of Ed members, administrators, community members, and other employees met and looked at the goals of the board and then started to put some plan action steps in place. So when we get to the first goal was specifically to create multiple academic pathways for success. And so different strategies were developed. Develop a curriculum revision plan. We know that our curriculum in the district needs revision. So we are looking at how do we develop a curriculum cycle to address that revision. And then there's a list of action steps that are indicated for each strategy. Who's actually going to be responsible to implement those action steps? What is the timeline associated with that? Because this is a 3-year plan. And then what are the performance indicators that we're going to be able to bring back to the board and say, this is the evidence that we have completed this particular strategy aligned to their goal. So strategy 2 under create multiple academic pathways is develop career pathways and academies at the secondary level. There's a host of action steps we need to put in place. And our target time is from 2017 to 2020. And then strategy number 3 is research life skill programs for students in grades 6 through 12. And then there are action steps associated with that. And our goal is 2018 to 2020 to implement that plan. And we're going to have different people help us with those steps along the way. At the beginning of the plan, which I didn't know, is that 4 times over the course of these 4 years, it'll be my job to come back and give you an update or a report card on how we're doing implementing the goals of the Board of Education. Strategy number 4 under goal number 1 is research, develop, and implement teacher retention plan. And with that, thinking about, you know, how do we grow our own school leaders? And that might be something we want to take a look at. And then, most importantly, strategy number 5, which aligns with all the professional development we're doing, is implement student-centered learning strategies into our instruction. And Ron just talked a little bit about how we're gonna do that in science, but across the board. How do we turn and put the responsibility of learning also on the students in the classroom? Then goal number 2 is investing in technology to meet the educational needs of our students. We do need to develop a 3-year technology plan, and I'll be working with Heather Burns, who's back there, our technology director, to put that together. We are gonna ask for teacher input and some, obviously, community input around that. We are applying for E-rate funding. The Board of Ed approved last month that we would engage a contract with E-rate Online to access federal E-rate money. So we're working on that. Designing a technology integration professional development plan. And one of the things that was so exciting that came out of Goal 2 session was that we want to establish a teacher leadership team to have internal capacity to deliver the professional development. Use our own teachers to help other teachers. So we're really working on that plan, and we're going to gather more information from our teachers, but we're hoping to put that plan in place this year. And then design professional development plan for parents and adult learners to reach out into our community. Once we get our infrastructure and more devices in place, how can we also make that available to the community, invite them in and provide them with professional development? And then, of course, increase online and blended learning opportunities for students, and there's a host of action steps there. I know Megan Baker and her team are looking at right now, they're implementing a virtual high school program, but they are also going out in a couple of weeks to look at the Summit platform to see if that's an option for Turtle Rock Memorial High School. And then migrate from a paper to a digital platform. That impacts the business department a lot. We want to kind of get away from the paper, but more importantly, implementing Google Classroom and using Google Docs and classroom apps so that we can reduce the reliance on paper and use some of those programs that are, we can put our documents in a cloud and a student can download them that way. And then we need to implement the goals of the district technology plan once it's developed. And then we would like to implement, of course, at the end of it all, when everything is fixed and the infrastructure is ready, a one-on-one computer program for our students here at Thompson Public Schools. And then goal 3 is establish an environment of collaboration and community involvement. And some of the strategies are to support the reactivation. You had a very robust Thompson Parents for Quality Education group, and we're hoping to mirror that program again or revive it. Strategy 2 would be to develop a plan to connect PTO, alumni, Thompson Public Schools with community and program events. We are in the process of establishing a community calendar, and we have other events that we're trying to coordinate this year. We want to have a plan to connect with our seniors. And then also plan a biannual tri-board meeting with the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Education, just to provide them with updates of what's happening in our school department. And the first thing I think we should do is really introduce the strategic plan to those 2 groups so they have an understanding of where we're going. And then strategy 5 is to expand the community outreach to support the town's strategic branding plan. There's already a branding plan in town. How can we help with that outreach? And then we do have an annual communication plan already in place. We want to make sure that gets implemented, develop a community partner program, and then certainly celebrate at the end of this 3 years if we meet the goals and objectives of our strategic plan. Certainly a community-wide celebration to say job well done. And then the final goal has to do with our facilities, developing a preventative maintenance plan, like a painting cycle over the next 3 years, making sure our temperature control system throughout the campus is at set points, conducting facility needs assessment to find out how better we should use our space that's available to us, and then thinking about the original Turtle Rock Memorial High School building and how can that be used now for educational space. And I know that that's one of the goals of the trustees to make sure that space is an active learning environment. So that is the strategic plan. It is a robust plan. We're asking for any kind of feedback while it's still in its draft form, but we're asking the board tonight if they would adopt the plan and let us get started on it.
Okay, very good. Any questions about this right now? All right. Next up is non-resident tuition.
Non-resident tuition. So I have in your packet a proposal. I did a little research on some of the districts that do not have a high school. And it come to find out that some of our neighboring districts actually recruit from those districts into their high schools. But one of the things that they already have is a set tuition rate by the Board of Ed. And so we don't have a standard set tuition rate for non-resident students to tuition them in. So I'm asking the board this evening to set a rate for our tuition so that I can go ahead and let some of our surrounding communities like Brooklyn, Woodstock, Union, and I forget the other one, Pomfret, know that we do have openings in our high school if they'd like to send some of their students here, and this is what the tuition rate would be. And I did a little bit of research in some of the surrounding districts, and I made a proposal in your packet for a general ed student, a non-resident tuition rate of $12,000 per year, and up for discussion.
And this will be, we'll see how it works. We would revisit this number every year.
Yes.
If we chose, but it's a starting point. And anybody have any questions?
Is the 12,000 in line with our per pupil expenditure? Because I think that's lower, isn't it?
No,
It is
sorry.
lower, and that's
This
what
is
I did a research. Putnam charges $11,400 for non-resident tuition, and it seems that typically it's lower than what the per pupil cost. Our total per pupil cost with our state aid, and then of course the local share, is $17,228. We pay on the town side $9,800, and then the rest is from state aid.
So we would get the state aid for that student from Pomfret applied to
That we're checking on. We want to make sure of that. I'm not certain. I don't know if the sending school district gets the state aid. Right now I have a call into the state to get clarity on that. But I do know that the surrounding districts set like that 11,000 and something for non-resident students. The seats are open at this point, so we're getting nothing for those seats that are open.
Exactly.
And so that's the only other, and so to recruit and fill those seats, we have a teacher there, we have, open seats, so we're trying to plug the holes and fill the
Makes
seats.
perfect sense.
Wouldn't the answer to Joe's question be, do we get state aid for the kids that we send to Gilman?
Right.
Wouldn't
and
that be the same or no?
That is what I'm trying to get clarity on. So Neil's out there, and we haven't been able to get a concrete, definite answer on that because of the funding
It
formula.
might be the same or different a little bit. We'll get it cleared up.
Yeah, and to Melinda's point, if we price ourselves out of the market, you're never gonna get
Oh, right.
anybody in.
We're not gonna get
Right,
anybody.
so you've
The
got to
We already
be,
have the teacher, the lights are already on.
Right, exactly.
Let's fill up the seats.
Well, it's our
Yeah.
argument all the time about losing 5 kids in the
Yeah.
whole district. You can't reduce it, people, they don't understand that, because, the lights are on and they need to be.
we have to be competitive.
Right, and this is the first go around. And
Right.
if it doesn't work, we can change it next year.
While we're on that subject, it's the only subject I thought I could pop this in. I was looking, there was a parent that I was talking to last month who was gonna try to make it here tonight, and I don't see them out there, so I'm gonna mention what they were talking about. It's just got to do with out of district, because, their son's at Ellis Tech. And their son and 3 of their son's friends were at the house last month. All 4 of them didn't realize that they could have come back here after their freshman year, and they didn't like it. And in fact, one of their parents thought that we paid Ellis Tech a tuition the day their kid went there for all 4 years. I know that. Again, we were talking about educating our
People.
families. that's something else. I mean, that was just one family with 4 friends, and all 4, or 3 friends, and all 4 of them said they would have come back if they knew they could.
Interestingly enough,
I never even thought of that.
Principal Baker and her team put together a really nice presentation for the 8th graders. And one of the messages that she did a really nice job with was, we'll always have a spot for you. And I think that that message really got out to the students. So, and she just had one come back from Alice in 10th grade. And we had quite a few return from the VOAG earlier this year. So we're seeing that students are starting to realize that they can get the same programming here if they're not interested in the specialized VOAG or the programs that they offer at Alice. So
I think we need to start sending this message in about the 6th grade before they start making their decisions.
I agree.
That they can get their college credits here, that they can, that if they choose to leave, they can always come back. There's always.
College credits are huge.
They are big.
It saved us tens of
And if I could
thousands of
add to
dollars.
that, we have been very aware that we need to reach back to 6th grade because the decisions do get made before they come into 8th grade. So one of our first steps when we're introducing the VHS course credits that are open for this coming semester, for a 2nd semester, we are specifically inviting all 7th through 12th grade parents to this open house on the 7th of December.
All right, any other questions, comments? So we'll it's action items later on. Is it in there? No, it's not
I
there.
don't see it.
All right, so should we move this to an action item?
I can make a motion to move it to an action item.
Okay, G-H, so Linda's got a motion to move this to H, an action item, and we have a second over here. This is just to move it to action items, so any discussion?
No.
All those in favor of moving it to an action item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so that'll be H.
When are we adopting the strategic plan? Should that be getting, is that gonna get voted on?
It's there, it's letter B.
Where am I?
It's
Hang on.
B.
There we go.
There we go.
Take
Okay.
glasses off.
Okay. Okay, administrative reports, administrator reports. Who wants to start? Ms. Baker?
Okay. Well, my report in your packet always talks about what happened last month. Our liaisons are here to talk about what's coming up so that they can invite you. But some long-range plans that we have happening, we're looking at doing a hands-off CPR program as a challenge to teach all of our students, or as many students as we can, through a campaign of what are some of the first responding emergency techniques that can save a person's life. We're also looking at teaming up with our Troop D for a community trooper faculty softball game to raise money for a fund that can help families in need. We've had some significant losses in our community over the last few years, and Mrs. Smith and I have been working together to figure out how we can move forward, and the suggestion made by a community member to team up with our troopers was very well received by Sergeant McCusker, so we're going to be looking at a March 29th date for that. But at the same time, I'd like to just take a minute and really applaud what a tight community we are. You'll notice the last item in your packet is just a quick note to you folks about a thank you note that I sent to Mr. Sharp. Mr. Sharp is the owner of Thompson Auto Body, and we had a small fender bender. I mean, it happens. We have young drivers. They're coming in excited to start their school day, and small fender bender as they were trying to park. Unfortunately, the parents with their work schedules were unable to come to campus, but I didn't feel that my expertise was enough to put these kids back on the road safely, although they've done all their other insurance coverages and such. So I just put a quick call into Mr. Sharp, and he didn't even bother to return the phone call. He instantly got in his car, came up, checked out the kid's car, and put my mind at rest so that I knew that as a parent, as a principal, that this kid's going to be safe. He took his own time out of his own day just to come up and make sure our kids are safe. And I just wanted to take the time to let our board officially know that we thanked him and for the continued relationship we have.
He's also our fire chief here in community, and just for the record, it's Thompson Auto Care. So,
Thank you.
Anybody that wants to go
just for
there.
the record.
Call us at 923.
He's a good guy.
He's a very good guy.
He's great.
He's a good guy, So thank you for doing that. I'm
Those
sure
are
he,
some
I'm
pieces
sure
in
he
our plan that are
appreciates
being
it.
presented.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. Mr. Scott.
Sure. Last week we had our Veterans Day Assembly. Thank you, Mr. Lindley, for speaking at our assembly. I want to thank Mr. Oakes and Student Council, as well as Mr. LeClaire and the band and chorus for doing a phenomenal job with our celebration. This coming Wednesday, we start our Grab and Go program for breakfast. So we're excited to offer that to our students. It's still happening on Wednesday. And the last bullet I want to highlight here is we had the PSATs, the first time the 8th graders took PSATs at the middle school. So we had our 8th graders take them on November 2nd. So we're excited to be involved. We're also excited to see what the results are going to look like. It'll give us some additional data for the students. It'll also give us the opportunity for the students to practice and go to Khan Academy and get some extra support if needed. So, so those are some 3 highlights from the middle school.
Great, thank you. Ms. Belcher?
I'm going to ask Erica to come forward. Oh, I know, she's going to die. But I think it's worthy because back a while, through our affiliation with now the Northeast Early Child Center, and we're part of that group, and it was sent an application, and so filled it out and asked a couple of teachers. One was Mrs. Brissett and Miss Gates, who also wrote letters. And this is Erica Poblowski, and she's going to be receiving the 2017 Parental Recognition Involvement Award, and the ceremony is this Thursday at the State Capitol Building, and it's to be pretty exciting because I looked at last year's and there was only 2 parents out of the whole state, so I'm not sure if Erica is just the one or there may be 2. So and I'm just going to read a couple of things because you may or may not know Erica in her own shy way, but sometimes when you hear her in action, she's not so shy. She offers, she's on staff as a para in our school, but outside of that, she finds the time to support all of our children by volunteering with our PTO. She has served as treasurer for many years. Currently, she's the vice president. She designs, implements many of the family events, including Breakfast with Santa, Halloween Egg Hunt, Family Movie Night, Magic Show, as well as 10 other fundraising events. She understands that family events should be fun and free to families. She has been instrumental in marketing these events, creating electronic posters that are sent to parents or posted on the PTO Facebook page. With her support, all grade levels receive $1,000 to spend on annual curriculum field trips, all outside the school budget. Last year, Erica was instrumental in obtaining a $5,000 award through Box Tops for Education, and they were the exact funds that we needed to complete the interactive whiteboard project, so all of our kindergarten classrooms could now enjoy that same technology. So it is all of these fundraising events, all of this energy, all of this time, and I'm so happy that they recognized her because she is an outstanding member of our PTO in our community. So it'll be an honor to join her on Thursday.
Great.
I promised she wouldn't have to speak, so.
You'll make a great member
We'll
of the
just
board
send
of
some
ed.
pictures. We'll just send pictures. Thank you. I would like to share some pictures, speaking of pictures. And on the heels of Ron that came to us, the 4th grade, we had, we're in our last year of a grant fund from Mystic Aquarium. The 4th grade will be going to Mystic Aquarium on Friday, but they went on a field coast study, and these are some pictures, and then the 4th graders had them do a considerable amount of writing. So these are just a couple samples I'm just going to send around so you can see. And everyone, and I mean handicapped student, along with all of our regular ed students, all could get into the water. All were involved to catch specimens and have a great time at that field coast study. And they said our group was very energetic, getting into the swamp and the smell and everything, and a lot of them had never, ever seen the ocean. So for those kids, this was a great experience. And our breakfast program is off to a wonderful start. We have over half the school partaking in breakfast. And so we're going to keep tracking that. We have a data wall, if you would, right across from the nurse, so you can see. If you're down that way, it'll be up so parents can even see through as they come up for parent conferences. And we're going to talk it up at parent conferences so that way keep that energy going and get more kids to partake in that program. So it's off to a great start. And a last thank you to Joe Lindley for speaking. I want to thank Larry Prentice for setting up our Veterans Day ceremony. It was outstanding as usual and did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just from a veteran's perspective, thank you very much for what you guys did, both schools. That was absolutely awesome. On a personal note, I was sitting in the audience waiting to speak. A young lady from the 4th grade came up and put a 3-panel display of her grandfather, who was a long-range reconnaissance patrolman for the 101st Airborne in Vietnam. When I looked at the panel, I was absolutely flabbergasted because in the panel, her grandfather was one of the guys that fought with the subject of my book and was there that day and was wounded. And I had looked all over the country for this guy, and here he was living in my backyard in Thompson. And unfortunately, he passed away a couple of weeks ago, but I was able to reunite with the family of Grace this week, and we're getting a lot of information about Don and what he did over in Vietnam. So that was worth.
So she has your book tucked under her arm, and she said she and her dad are reading your book. So
the last piece I'll tell you, I've never done this in any of the talks I've done with the veterans with American Legion. I happened to grab a hat that was given to me several years ago from the LERP team that her grandfather was part of, and I've never done that before. And it was kind of a way for that hat to be reunited with Don and his family. So I gave it to Grace, and I heard from her dad that she prizes it, so that's great. So a great experience.
Thank you. Deb, you got anything you wanna?
Winter season is about to open. The girls just finished their season and their run in the state tournament Saturday. Was a nasty game for us. The other team had a great game. So that we ended our season in the quarterfinals. But it was a good run for the year for the girls. And middle school basketball started their tryouts today for boys and girls. High school, the girls will start the Monday before Thanksgiving, and everybody else starts the Monday after Thanksgiving. So we're getting ready to roll for winter.
Good. Deb, I talked with one of the parents from the other team, and the gentleman said that that was their best game the entire season, and we caught them on their best day.
Well,
so I said, thank you very much for that happening.
Well, that was a very, not only well-coached team, but they also were, I'm sure if you went through the whole roster, they either played Premier or played ODP.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't one kid out there. I took the fastest kid that I had to put on their fastest kid, and she wasn't anywhere near him.
They were
They
tall.
were just, and they were all that
Yeah,
fast.
tall, talented, and tenacious.
Yeah, they were a great team to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, everything all right around here?
Everything's okay around here.
Can you fix that buzzing?
I've been on him. You got the buzzer the day I wasn't here. We're still moving along, changing light bulbs. We've got 7,000 new LED lights that are going in. We're probably a third of the way through that. We had a visit from the Northeast Department of Public Health, responding to a tip to come in and review our asbestos management plan. The lady spent half a day with me. She toured the facility. She looked at all of our documentation, and I'm pleased to say we did okay. She found a couple of pieces of documentation that were misplaced, but other than that, everything is in good shape. We've had some tough weather this past month, so we're chasing water, as always. The roof is the roof is the roof, and until we get a new one, it's gonna still be the roof. But we've been working on a couple of other long-term problems that we have had here for a long time. I think we finally got a solution to those 7th grade classrooms that always leak in a driving rain. Hopefully that'll be done by the end of the month. We fixed some windows in the high school that have been a problem for a while. And we've got a plan to trace down a long-term problem in the elementary school in the music room. But more on that next month when we see how it works out.
Do you have to start the boilers up?
I'm afraid so.
Everything all right though?
Everything, all the boilers are up and running, all 13 of them were singing away this afternoon when I left.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks.
Thanks.
Good.
As a building committee,
Yeah.
where do we stand on the roof? What, how have we
We're
gotten
waiting,
to the point that it's so?
waiting for the town to give us the money to hire an architect. To do this, to get all the state reimbursement, we have to have a building committee. We have to hire the architect to submit the plans to the state. That's what we're doing now. That was the $166,000 that we requested of the town. So if this referendum passes, that money's in there, and we should be all set
And if
to
this
move
referendum
forward.
doesn't pass, can't the Board of Finance, because as Ray said, we need a roof.
Well, the main thing is we have to take the tanks out of the ground, that's the law.
That's true too.
And then we need the roof, and it's reimbursable.
Right.
Well, 74% or
Right.
whatever that is. So most of that money's coming back.
Right.
But because of the amount of money, the Board of Finance can't just loan it to us for a couple of years. It's gotta go through the town meeting referendum part of it. So hopefully this passes, because we have to do it regardless. I don't know how we're gonna do it otherwise, but that's
Right.
where we stand on that.
Okay, so that was number one. And water infiltration is way too kind. Tell the public what it is. Let's tell them, damn roof's leaking. You know, yeah, asbestos management. When I read that, I get very frustrated, and I'm glad I'm being taped. If somebody doesn't have the guts to put their name to it, you know, it's unfortunate that we even have to address it, because evidently it was an anonymous tip. But through the health department, now, if somebody's doing an anonymous tip, in my mind, they're also gonna run their mouth somewhere else. Can we put somewhere, hey, we passed, flying colors, another case of somebody's accusing, but it's not true. You know me, I've had it with that stuff.
It can go in an
So,
update. So
put it in the update,
Sure.
you know, we had a visit, and guess what? We
Yeah.
passed.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, we're not paying for the truancy officer either.
Yes. That's a whole show.
Someone get into your Cheerios.
I just hate that stuff.
All right, anybody else have any questions for our administrators?
I need a stress management class.
They-
No,
No.
not at all.
Now, Colleen, those, that the children made, the students made, are they going to be sent to Mystic Aquarium?
Yes, yes, that's
They
the
will be?
class, the same
Okay.
class. I figured, if they did the field coast study and then followed with the Mystic Aquarium, it'd be a great group. And they did the squid night, so that 4th grade's getting, and then they're going to be the pilot, so getting that whole sequence of science is going to give them a great, kind of background before they get to middle school.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that those were sent directly to, Mystic Aquarium, because that's
Oh,
who they
yeah.
made them out to.
Yes, in fact, doing this each year and getting the samples and the pictures and so forth, and bundling it up, the kids, all of their work, that has actually got us the grant every year, because they thanked us for being enthusiastic.
Thank you.
Okay, Jordan, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
I'm well. Emily, welcome. You gonna sit near your father?
We can
No.
switch if you want.
You don't wanna sit near him?
No, I'm
Wow.
good. I'm good. All right.
That's it.
So,
No more
I
allowance.
would like to take this opportunity while we're talking about her to formally introduce the board to Miss Emily Angelo. I'm sure you probably know her from somewhere.
Someone you do?
I don't know. So yes, I'm happy to announce I have a new partner in crime. So yes, we will proceed. So she has some stuff for you. It's always a great way to introduce somebody. I get to give stuff to you. So Turtle Jungleware is on sale until November 17th, which is Friday. So all proceeds benefit this year's yearbook production. Also starting November 17th are butter braids and cookie dough sales. That's benefiting the music department. So if you would like some braided bread, I've got braided bread. So yes. All of the proceeds for that, while I'm thinking about it, are going to offset the cost of our Broadway trip. We are seeing Wicked this year, and I am excited about that. So yes. November 14th, the town rec department is offering a free self-defense course for women at 2 o'clock p.m. I think I'm going to that. Oh, Lord knows I need it. So November 15th, Jeff Yalden, the author of Boom Motivational Speaker, is going to be speaking about from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Killingly High School, and they have opened their doors to the public. He specializes in teenage depression, drug, alcohol, and social media issues, which are always fantastic issues to bring awareness to, especially to the public. So, yes. The November 16th is our Turtle Ops Got Talent. It has a 7 p.m. entrance, and the admission is $5. I am concessions captain, so I'm going to be running the stand with the food. Come out. I've seen some of the acts so far, and they're pretty cool. I think you can come out. It'll be great. And also to mention, this is like the first talent show of its capacity we've had. We have hosts. It's kind of modeled after America's Got Talent. If you've seen it, we have buzzer acts. We have some surprises, live interviews. It's gonna be fun. We have some surprises that even I don't know about, so you should come out and check that out. On November 17th, we have a peer point training for our student tutors. I will also be there. Following last year's pilot year of the Peer Point Student Writing Center, 23 TMHS students will be trained as peer tutors on November 17th. The training is going to be led by Cindy Willett and Tracy Williams. And we're going to review the writing process and strategy for being an effective tutor. And we're going to take part in mock tutoring sessions to gain some practice in implementing tutoring strategies. And we're also going to design a tutor contract and develop marketing ideas for the center. November 18th, which is Saturday, CMEA All Regional Auditions are taking place. I am also going to be there, so wish me luck. We have 10 students who are auditioning for CMEAs this year, and the festival showcases the best of the best music talents throughout the Eastern Connecticut area, and if scores are high enough through the auditions, students are invited to perform with the top musicians at UConn during the 2-day All-Eastern Music Festival event in January. So we wish us all good luck. We have people from choir and band going for it, and I think actually we're all auditioning at the same time, which is weird. So that's like never happened before ever, which is why I say that. So we're all going at the same time, and poor Mrs. Anderson usually likes to run around and wish us luck, so she's gonna have to grow a couple more bodies because we're all going at the same exact time, which is convenient for leaving, but not for much else. So, like I said before, the TMHS Music Department is hosting several fundraisers to help offset the cost of our Broadway trip, and we're having a music breakfast, all you can eat, on Sunday at the American Legion from 7:30 to 11:30. Tickets are $8 and can be bought at the door if you don't happen to catch somebody from the music department, so come on out. Like I said, it's all you can eat. So I'm going to hand it over to Miss Emily.
So to start off about the sports, I'd like to thank everyone who's involved with or came and supported the girls' soccer team on Saturday. It was very much appreciated. And the high school is also having their Powder Puff Pep Rally at 12:30 p.m. on November 21st. Also that night, the football is having their potluck supper and bonfire. And also on the Thanksgiving Day football game is against Dimes Valley, if I'm pronouncing that right. And the girls are starting off our winter sports for basketball on November 27th. And along with what Deb said, December 2nd is all the other winter sports. And the art department is doing another show at the Thompson Public Library this December 4th through the December 22nd. Reception will be Thursday, December 7th, 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. So go out and see the art. And the high school winter concert is 12:30 p.m. for students on December 6th. Parents and the public will be that night at 6:30 in the auditorium. Admission is free and open to the public, so spread the word and come out and see our TMHS students for music.
Okay. So, I'm back. I know it's disappointing. So, yes, we're having several other community performances after that concert because of our professionalism, and we are great. So, Modern Music Department particularly, we've been invited to a lot of different gigs in public. The last one was at the Harrington Hospital just past.
Just up in Webster?
Yeah.
It's one.
Yes.
193.
The old
Yeah.
Hubbard?
So we have many more gigs to follow. So yeah, we're proud of our Modern Music Department for doing so well. As we mentioned before, the virtual high school is going well, and we have our second semester course offerings assembly for students on December 7th. And also on December 7th, we have the digital portfolio parent presentation, which is also in relation to VHS, and the media center from 5:30 p.m. And on December 8th, second quarter progress reports go home, and it's been adjusted due to the October closing. And we have an early release for students that day because of a teacher's professional learning with Miss Diane Dugas on mastery-based learning. I have more for you that's not like on anything that you have from the leadership team. We've been very successful. Our last in-service was Friday. I'm not sure if you heard, like we had a panel discussion for the 8th graders a little bit back, and that went well. So Mr. O'Brien, who manages all of the tech with video up in the high school, offered to film us. So he stuck us in front of a bunch of cameras with some fancy chairs, and we kind of videoed that so that middle school parents would be able to see everything that our school is able to offer. And at that same in-service, we formed a bunch of subcommittees following the concerns expressed via the student voice forms and the branding activity completed during the last meeting. And some of the chosen topics that we're hoping to address are negative myths portrayed about TMHS. I don't like those either, especially when they're coming from people who don't even go here. So we're trying to get rid of them. Not every student feels included here, so we're trying to address the needs of students who may not be as involved in the school, so that's another subcommittee topic. We're trying to get more awareness out for the middle school students and parents not as familiar with TMHS, which kind of goes along with the negative myths. We try to eliminate those. The more you know, the less negative myths are going to be out there. We're trying to address the AC and heating problem. It's freezing. I don't like that. And so we're also trying to get other drinks besides water into the school, because a lot of teachers, they can have coffee, and there's a Dunkin' right there. And yeah, so we're trying to make coffee not contraband. And I'm on a subcommittee about the budget. So we are going to try to get a slideshow together. Being pro-budget, we've got a lot of plans. I mean, I don't have anything solid yet, but it's irritating for us when the budget's not passed too, so we're hoping to kind of help that along in future years. We have a sportsmanship committee, because I heard that was kind of an issue, and then we have a school spirit committee, so those are kind of what the student leadership team are going to be tackling as of late, so updates to come.
Wow, thank you so much. I think if you argued that coffee point to anybody, they'd side with you.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I see plenty of people, it's not inconspicuous at all. They have it in their handbag. I'm like, you have a straw sticking out of your purse. It's not a secret that that's not water, but okay.
Jordan, Tom, maybe if you could get the list from Emmy and Jordan for the Alumni Association site, because there's a lot of things that maybe some of the alumni would like to know.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if we can do it for tomorrow, but I'd love to have both of you come to one of the alumni meetings and you can talk to the alumni. It'll be another way of joining current students with the alumni.
Okay.
One other thing, just want to say with Jordan, I recruited her at the alumni concert to rock it out to some AC/DC.
Yeah.
And her and her friends came up, and myself and my other guitarists from my band provided the music, and they helped us finish off a little AC/DC song. So it was very enjoyable. And next year, we're going to have you come back because we want to do Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Really?
Which was a request, so I can't hit those high notes, so you're going to have to help me.
Oh, well, we'll see. We get some grunge in there. I like grunge.
All right, we'll do some Nirvana.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, I also have a question for
Yes.
anybody. Are the Board of Finance meetings open for?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
cool. Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody have any questions, comments for anybody?
For the Powder Puff, do you still have the really attractive cheerleaders?
Oh, yes.
Yes?
And we're gonna have choreography.
Oh,
so.
boy. 'Cause my son was one of those. His,
Oh, yeah.
His
Oh,
junior
yeah.
and senior year, yeah.
Yep.
It's a very interesting group.
The senior boy cheer team is
Yes.
planning to definitely
Yes.
hit
Seeing
the
my
high
son in a
notes.
skirt was fun.
Yeah, we might see some stunts. Hopefully, no concussions.
Yes.
So we'll see.
If we wanna order these, well, obviously, I can give mine to you, but, anybody else, we can just drop them off at the
At main office.
main office.
When do you need them back by?
17th? 17th, I believe.
This is great, thank you.
All right, let's move on to action items. The first one is the minutes of the October 10th meeting. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the October 10th
We
meeting.
have a motion from Linda, could I have a second?
Good, second.
Thank you. All right, any discussion on these?
I'm not sure I was so blunt as to say I would like the calendar to work properly, but that's okay.
Yeah, it was a weird discussion.
I read that, I thought I was a little.
Just leave it. Yeah, you probably were. You said those exact words.
I remember you said that.
I did, cause we did have the confusion there.
Okay.
I'm still getting.
Everybody-
Is anyone else getting that?
What?
I get, elementary attendance.
I
Yes.
get that too.
I got it for a couple of days and it
Cause it's got
stopped.
something to do with, it's like two-sided or something, her calendar is on the same link or something, so.
I'll have to show Deb again how to not do that.
Okay.
Me too.
It's nice to know who's there, though.
Yes, yes.
Okay, interested who's not in school. All right, we good with this, the
Yeah.
minutes?
Yes.
All those in favor of accepting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions? One abstention. All right, we have the strategic plan adoption.
Before you go on to the next one, do we want the liaisons to stay, or do you wanna let them go so they can,
Study?
because they're students, just asking?
Do you want your daughter to go home?
If she wants to stay, she's more than welcome.
You ladies are welcome to leave if you, I know it's getting late. There's no reason for you to hang around if you don't want to. But you can also stay.
It's okay.
Yeah, my mom might think I'm dead by this point.
Call her before you leave, not while you're driving.
No, I'm old.
Thank you for your consideration, Mr. Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies.
Strategic plan adoption. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to accept.
We have a
I'll
motion from
second.
Joe, we have a second from Kathleen. Discussion. So the superintendent went over it earlier. Anybody have any questions, concerns?
Is it going to be considered, almost a living document in that we can add, right? We can kind of tweak, cause I know we talked about it.
And I think we should add.
Alright.
But this is starting,
Yep.
a starting
Yep.
point for it. So we good? Anybody else, anything? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the strategic plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions? Thank you. Next is Title IV, grant approval.
So just like when Mr. Joyce had applied for that Perkins grant, one of the things is that we needed is board approval if we are granted the grant to accept the funds. Thompson was allocated an amount of $10,000 of federal grant money, and we were able to select a category under safe and healthy students. And under that, Mr. Sugarman did a wonderful job putting together a grant proposal that includes restorative justice program for our secondary schools, early childhood social skill program called Tools of the Mind, And then some mindfulness programs which include relaxation strategies using yoga. And we contacted Shri Yoga to come in and do some of that relaxation for our kids at the secondary level. There's professional development for teachers associated with that, and then also that whole social emotional health component to that. We are going to kick off some of the PD with the teachers on January 2nd, showing them a film called Resilience. I was invited out to EastCon to see that film. It talks about childhood trauma and the impact that it has on student learning and how they navigate in the classroom. And I think it's something that all of our faculty and staff should see, so that we all have that information as we're trying to support students in the classroom. So this program, this federal grant, Title IV, the money was allocated, but you had to apply for it. And I give Mr. Sugarman a lot of the credit. He and I met with the social workers and the guidance counselors in both schools. And together we decided that we would apply for the grant under Safe and Healthy Students. And so we are applying for that, and once it's approved, we just want you to give approval that we can accept the $10,000.
All right, could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to, if the grant is approved, that we accept the $10,000.
I'll second it.
Second, Wanda, any other discussion, questions?
One question.
Sure.
As, you know, with grants, legacy costs, or this is just, we get it, we spend it, we don't have to keep, you know,
Exactly.
there's nothing that we're bound to for years on end.
No, it's very similar to Title I, II, and III, where those federal grants, they give you an allocation based on a formula. You have to apply and program for it, and this is a new grant. We haven't seen Title IV money around for years. I'm actually excited that we're gonna be able to have some funds to put these programs in place.
I mean, I've talked about, we talked about grants for years now, get as many as we can. I just don't want it locking us into something, that's all.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor of accepting the grant, should it be awarded to us, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That one's a no-brainer. All right. Teacher?
Can we, do an update on these, cause I mean,
I give them out to you every month. I give you an update in my grants.
I mean, I'm thinking online, on the site.
You want me to put it on the website?
Why not? A running total update of grants we're bringing in.
I know I'm gonna put it in my budget presentation as one of the things that we aren't sitting on our hands. We are looking for money.
Okay, next is our teacher contract approval. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move to approve for discussion.
I'll second it.
I'll move to approve so we can discuss it, sorry.
Yeah, no, I get you, So we have a motion and a second, discussion.
Have we, when I was going through the contract and trying to compare that against my notes, I wasn't able to accurately do this. Is this, what are we exactly approving here? Just the things that which we agreed on with the bargaining unit up to date? Because we still have arbitration to go through, and we haven't agreed on anything, have we?
We have agreed on it, yes.
Well, we didn't get the update on the salary, it's the last thing that we left.
It's in that proposal that we sent you.
Well,
I think
it's
it
in
was
the
in there, the
proposal.
last one, the last amount agreed by
Both sides?
both sides,
Both
yeah.
sides.
What was, that, well, we've got a schedule, but it didn't go through, I'd have to go through and do the math, right?
We have percentages by the year.
We did, but it's not in this salary, in here, I don't see it in the contract,
Yeah,
I
the
looked over.
schedule that we all went through, I didn't see it in here either.
It's not stated by year. It's
Oh,
not, the percentages.
I just knew it from the discussions, I didn't read it.
Well, it's
I
not,
did.
yes, but,
But
so
we-
we
The
didn't go.
percentage, you're looking for the percentage.
Percentages
Yeah,
by
that's
year,
not in
it's
this.
not in here.
Unless, I mean, I didn't see it today when I was reviewing.
No, I looked for it specifically, it's not, there is a schedule attached,
Yeah, well,
which I didn't do the math for, mea culpa, but I didn't do the math.
it'll be public anyway.
Yeah, it has to be made
Yeah.
public,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
so, yeah, well, the first year we agreed on 1.5.
Right.
And 2.3, and then 2.95.
Okay, so we didn't go to the, okay, so we,
So-
okay.
What was it again, Bill?
1.5,
With no
2.9,
step.
2.95.
And 2.95, okay, that's all
With
I
no
wanted to
step.
know is where we came in on that.
Yeah,
And that's,
with-
that's not specifically outlined in this contract. They do
It
the
should be.
schedules.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know what you were looking for though, but that's also with step.
Not the first year.
not the first year, there's no step the first year. And then steps after that, and that's fine, that's what we agreed.
And then all the,
All the other-
other concessions they made on healthcare and.
Yep, and that's
and
all
the,
as
uh,
we agreed.
And the other parts on our,
School,
the extra school was all agreed upon.
Yep.
All right, and Ann went through this and
She did.
Mhm.
So we're good with that?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, discussions on the teacher's contract? Okay, because we did awful lot of work on that one. I think it's good for both of us, so.
Mhm.
All those in favor of accepting the teacher's contract, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
Yep.
Okay. Next is our administrator contract. For discussion, could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom.
Sorry.
Do I have a second?
second.
Thank you, Joe. Discussion on the administrative contract?
Same question. Ann went through everything, Melinda?
She did, and I know Noveline went through it with her work too.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions, comments on this one? And this is a 2-year contract. Okay, so we're good? So all those in favor of accepting the administrator's contract, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes. Okay. Our meetings for upcoming year, we gotta get this done and posted.
You need a motion on that?
I guess
Yeah.
so.
I'll move to accept.
So we have a motion, could I have a second? Second, thank you, Linda. Discussion?
Did we check the dates on the February 12th? President's Day is what, the 19th?
I don't know, Thomas.
I can't remember if it was the 12th or 19th.
The 14th. 14th? Oh, that's Valentine's Day.
Don't forget that one, Bill.
19th.
It'll be in my situation.
19th. I made it 30 years. That's
Not bad, though.
Okay.
It's the 19th is
Okay,
President's
so we're
Day.
okay then, all right.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions, comments about this? We can add meetings,
Doesn't
special
seem like
meetings.
anybody evidently wants them.
Okay, I got you.
They say they do, but then they say they won't show up, so.
That's okay. We, you know what, if there's a big groundswell of,
We'll move on.
we can call a special meeting, it's not a big deal. Okay, so we good with these dates?
Mm-hmm.
No? You weren't paying attention.
I
Anyway, we're good? All right, all those in favor of accepting these dates as proposed, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Good. I'm on your side. All right, we have a request for maternity leave from Laura Stefanski. Okay, do you have a motion?
I'll move to accept.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, thank you.
Can I ask you, why do we even have these on?
Because we've always done it, I don't know why.
Do you not approve?
Do you not approve it? She has to unpregnate herself?
I didn't say that. That was not Tom Angelo.
Does she live in town, is the question we always ask.
Val, is there a reason from the union's perspective, do you know?
It's just so that it's approved and people know that then there'll be a posting for a substitute.
Oh, I see, okay. Well, that makes sense, that
Is
makes
she a
sense.
resident?
You know, I mean, everybody
Yeah.
takes different lengths of time.
Yeah,
for-
okay.
Val, is she a resident to help our enrollment?
No,
She's not?
No.
But you never know.
We could tuition her in.
We can encourage her to be a resident. There you go.
Okay, so all those in favor of allowing this lady to have her baby, please?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Next, what's next? The non-resident tuition. I lost my agenda, I don't know where I put it. Okay, so, could I have a motion, please, for the non-resident
I'll
tuition?
make the motion. Then
We have a,
set a non-resident tuition.
okay,
Second.
and, what is that? We have a second from Joe. Any discussion?
Bill, before you start that discussion, could I make a few relevant comments?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. I had emailed Sean this morning with a copy to Melinda about the need to review board fiscal policy. And just because I had mentioned that, pulled out fiscal policy, and in reading it today, discovered the following as it relates to tuition. So I just wanted to share it with you as you start the discussion. It says, the tuition fee shall be established annually by the board. The tuition fee for regular education will be the most recent net per pupil expenditure as determined by the Connecticut State Department of Ed. The tuition fee for special education students will be determined based on the annual cost of regular ed, plus the additional cost of special education services provided. So I didn't even have a chance to tell Melinda this. I just ran up to my office and grabbed it a little while ago, so I just remembered reading about it today. So it's relevant to the discussion you're about to have, so I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
So then for bookkeeping, we need to table this, get rid of that, and set, because how can we set the tuition that's not in line with the policy that we have?
That's kind of why I wanted to bring it to your attention. The other comment I want to make relates to the revenue. We only had one instance of this in the 3 years I've been around now, 3+ years. And we took the tuition dollars that we received and offset Board of Ed expenses. The fiscal policy appears to be silent on what happens with this money, but I suspect the town would want to grab this money and use it as an offset to the taxes as opposed to us offsetting expenses. But like I said, the policy's silent on that as far as I can tell. So I just wanted to share those two things so you're aware of them.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and I'd like to know how the state piece fits in as well.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't want to be in a position where we're charging out-of-town students less than we pay for our own students. And right now, our per pupil expenditure is up around 16,000. Now, I don't know how much of the 12 that we're recommending is reimbursed by the state, if the state's even involved in that. But I think we just need to understand that, I think, a little bit better.
Okay, so if you withdraw your motions, we'll discuss it and we'll come back in December.
So yes, I will withdraw my motion.
Okay. Okay, so we'll table this till next. Our next was correspondence. We all got a copy of the letter that Principal Baker sent to John Sharp. Very nice. Old business, I don't know that we have any. Citizens' comments?
Not super relevant to, but just looking
Yeah.
at Winnie.
What is that?
Do we know?
I got an update.
One of my students, their house
51
is
Chase Road.
gone. Everybody's okay, it says, but.
What's the name?
East Camden Marshall. It's Marshall's?
Oh, Cash.
That's my
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
And they're right across from pools.
That's
Yeah.
who?
Fred and Molly.
That's not right on the common, is it?
No, 3 houses down.
Yeah,
She
just
said, Tara said 51.
So that's near the fire station?
It's gotta be like right across the street.
Just before it.
Adam Buffett said it was the house he grew up in and his mom still owned it.
That's what I got an update, that's what I was trying to figure it out.
Phil Poole said it's right across from Dal's house?
No.
Behind, yeah.
No.
It's close, it's nearby.
Across from my
Next road.
sister's,
Yeah, it's 3 houses
in the
down.
neighborhood backyard, but still,
Okay. That's
So-
sad,
we'll be
They're all close there.
reaching out to
and they're all
the
very
family.
close.
Yeah.
Any other citizen comments? Jody?
I just don't know if there's any awareness of the 3 students that were killed from Quabog, freshman, sophomore, junior. They were all riding in the car together.
When was this?
I'm aware, Quabog,
When?
week ago, maybe a week and a half ago.
What is,
So-
I'm sorry, what is Quavo?
It's a high school,
Okay.
it is in Mass.
Okay.
But I think it's relevant that kids have to understand that there are some impacts to driving and having your friends before it's legal, to have your friends in the car. So 3 friends killed, and I only know about it because I have some coworkers that are friends of these kids and families. So it's devastating to Quabog because the only grade that wasn't affected was senior. It's a small school. It could happen here.
They were all affected.
But, just some general awareness, it does happen. Kids don't think about that.
Any other comments? I don't know, I was gone for a short time, but I don't know if anybody announced that Val Martino won the election. She'll be joining us next month. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Mr. Eichner for his years of service. So, can we do that? Huh? I know, so.
Should we send a note to him, just thank him?
In the plaque, we should give plaques.
Yeah, we usually give something for retiring.
Yeah, so, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Does she know?
Yeah, the teacher knows.